proper webinar. And I say proper because we, as all of you, are too busy working and getting things done. And what we've learned in the last 6 months of working with local governments is that the amount of work, effort, leadership, and innovation that is happening at that level of governance, it's unparalleled. And it's important that we showcase the leaders, the people that are day to day taking the hard tasks, the bridges, the people like ProposalHelper and Mick Mann and Roy Zaban that you will meet today that are connecting the dots and that are trying to translate innovation, small businesses, startups into the local government. And then the people that is really pushing local government procurement forward. I am Paula Santana. I'm the founder and CEO of Glass. Glass is an ecosystem of software products that basically is trying to help people at government that want to do the right thing to do the right thing in a simple way. And that's it. We create software from procurement platforms to local portals, and we also partner with some government organizations so they can explain us their challenges from the technology point of view, and we can really augment and maximize their efforts. So thank you everyone for joining us. We have today an A-star lineup of speakers. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves because it's important that you hear and you see them and you know how they look and how these people behind the computer and behind government really pushing government forward and innovation forward. So I'm gonna go straight into, so I'm gonna say who is here first and then they can have some time to say hi and to introduce themselves. We have Philip Saunders from the city of Seattle. We have also Roy Zaban, that is a GovTech and public sector innovation advisor. We have Sabrina Saffar, that is councilwoman for the city of San Ramon in California. We have Mick Mann, that is the CEO of Singularity University South Africa chapter. We have Fabian Lopez, that is a digital agency for public innovation advisor in the city of Mexico. We have Rena Batia, that is the founder and chief architect at ProposalHelper. And we have also representing Innpulsa Colombia, we have Ana Ospino, that is the head of MegaiNN, and she's going to tell us a little bit what MegaiNN is about. So Philip, please introduce yourself to the webinar and to the attendees.
Well, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're located at. I'm Philip Saunders, and I am the Division Director for Logistics and Emergency Management and the Green Program here in the city of Seattle. Looking out the window today, it's pretty cloudy and rainy, to be expected for Seattle, right? But hopefully you guys are getting some sunshine wherever you're at. Definitely a champion in the community for small business and minority-owned businesses to make sure that we're able to connect with our communities and to make sure that the city is putting folks in a good position to be able to, one, procure things from those small businesses and WIMBY businesses, and to continue to champion sustainability as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Next, we have Roy Zaban.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for inviting me for this webinar. My name is Roy, and good night from Israel. I'm a public sector innovation advisor. I formerly worked with the UN and with local governments, also in Israel and in Europe. I wrote the strategy for open innovation for the Israeli government, and I help GovTech startups and local governments understand how they should speak and work together to increase our welfare as human beings. And I believe that innovation is not a technological issue, it's a human issue. And that's what is driving me. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Next, we go with Councilwoman Sabrina Saffar.
Thank you, Paula. And really what an honor to be with this global panel and audience. So really humbled to be part of this group. My name is Sabina Zafar. I'm a councilwoman with the city of San Ramon, now elected and in my 3rd year as a councilwoman. I also serve on the Innovation and Technology Advisory Committee as a liaison, which was actually the committee which I formed my first day on council, and thought, we needed that in the city of San Ramon. I also advise on our Economic Development Advisory Committee, Arts and Teen Council, and I am a chair of the San Ramon Finance Subcommittee as well, and serve on several other liaison committees. My day job is I work with General Electric on the grid innovation side of things and decarbonization. And so my passions around technology bring both my worlds together. And I'm really excited to hear from everybody on the panel on how they are bringing innovation to their cities as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. It's an honor for us to have you and get some time of your busy agenda. So next we have Mick Mann from Singularity University, South Africa.
How's it, everybody? Great to be with you from sunny South Africa. It is night time as well, same as Roy, same time zone. And thanks to Paula and Valeska. I think this is a great discussion, very needed for the future of governments and for society. And over the last 6 years, we've been running SingularityU South Africa for SUHQ, and really focusing on how do we create a global community of change makers that are able to innovate and implement solutions to some of our problems in Africa and around the world, so that we can lead the way during this technological transformation and not be chasing this tail of disruption. And we've had an incredible journey over the last 6 years. I also have a business called Man-Made, which is a brand experience company focused on giving people unique experiences through online or in person in the old days. And yeah, very excited to help create change.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you so much. Next, we have Fabian Lopez from the Ciudad de Mexico.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, all the GLASS team. I feel really honored to be here and to be invited to this webinar. And yes, here in Mexico City, we are working in the public procurement platform. For the past 3 years, we've been accelerating the implementation of the public procurement electronic tool, which it's so-called Tianguis Digital. Tianguis meaning street market. So we wanted to give a name that is attached to the local people. And Tianguis Digital has different modules for different things, for registration of public procurement, for monitoring public procurement, and for conducting in everything electronically of public procurement. So we are excited of creating this transformation. It's been a challenge for us because, as you might know, the cities in Latin America, they have somehow really complex issues regarding procurement. So we have many challenges, but we are so excited and we are really happy of being part of this transformation and to have the tools and the collaboration that we need to create this change. So I'm really excited to be here with you and to exchange ideas and exchange opinions of that.
Thank you so much, Fabian. I'm sure that at the end of the webinar, many of these of the panelists might wanna help Ciudad de Mexico, so we can go for a week and try to, we can come and see how we can help out. So that'd be nice. Then we have Rena Batia from ProposalHelper.
Thank you so much, and I'll go anywhere sunny. Sorry, Seattle. My name is Rena Batia. I'm the CEO, founder of ProposalHelper, and we recently launched BidExecs. We are on the other side. Our mission is to create a platform for companies to market and get in front of government to show their innovation. A lot of, not just small companies in general, do not know how to market themselves to the government and make your technologies and platforms or make the government aware of your innovations. Our job is to do that. Over the last 11 years since I founded the company, we have helped over 4,000 companies get in front of the government. I've been in the industry for 28 years. We are now the largest employee-only bid and proposal company in the United States. And last year, we launched our franchise model We want to get more local folks who are wanting to grow their own bid and proposal company to start setting up their practices and our headquarters to support them so that more businesses can do business, can work with the government and bring their technologies to the forefront. So I'm excited to be here and exchange ideas with the panelists.
Thank you so much, Reena. Last but not least, we have Ana Ospino from Innpulsa, Colombia. Ana?
Well, hi everyone, and it's really nice to be here with these amazing panelists. I'm Ana Ospino from Innpulsa, Colombia. I'm also in a tropical place, so welcome, Reena, to Colombia anytime you want. What do we do in Innpulsa? We are the government agency that is in charge of ecosystems, of developing ecosystems, entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems. And MegaiNN is one of the programs we are working on to fulfill that goal. What we do at MegaiNN is to help to connect the different actors of the innovation ecosystem to help each other and contribute to be more innovative and how to change people's minds, especially the GovTech and public servers. What we want to do is to connect through open innovation the needs of public servers and public institutions with startups and GovTech entrepreneurs in Colombia.
Thank you so much, Ana. So now we're ready to go into our discussion. We're gonna do tough questions, and because these are difficult problems that we are tackling from a government, innovation, and entrepreneurial perspective. If any of the attendees of this webinar have any questions, please make sure you add them either to the chat or to the Q&A, and then 15 minutes before the end, we're gonna let the panelists answer those questions. So we're gonna start with a question for Councilwoman Sabrina Saffar. Let's set the tone here. What's a local government? What's the role of local governments in our day-to-day lives? And why is their work critical? This is the biggest question to set the tone here, because we have so many local governments that go overshadowed by national and federal governments. But I want to understand if local governments are the ones in the ground with the people, and what the work that you guys are doing day to day really impact the lives of our day to day.
Yeah, well, Paula, thank you so much for asking that question, because there's always very confusion around the mayor. What does the mayor do? What do the council members do? So to set the stage, right, we are the policy-making body, and we set the direction. So if the majority of us agree, and sometimes one of us will have an idea and will bring, the others on board and say, this is what we're looking for, we make the policy and then we pass the budget. So we're generally basically the staff, and a lot of times people who are working in the capacity and hired by the city will, build a procurement process, will get all the bids in, will pick the finalists, and then that's going to make it to us, and we'll be told, this is who we've picked. Are you guys okay with this? We do our background and research, making sure it's a company that we agree with, and this is how we want to go. Now, that's like on a very high level. What is important to see is policy defines so much of how things are done. I think I mentioned this in the beginning that for me, when I joined our local government, I felt a huge lack that we as a community were very much a community of entrepreneurs, of technologists, and yet we had no representation in our committees. And we had no committee which was about innovation and technology. So as a representative, I can't do things alone. So I needed to have a committee of community members that were looking at the things that we were passionate about, that I was passionate about, and my council was passionate about, and how could we use technology to innovate? How could they advise our staff? How could they let our staff know, look, these are all the things that exist, and let's start thinking about them. So really, being that policy-making arm and making sure that we are constantly innovating and making our staff aware of what's out there is really the role of the local government. we build a lot of partnerships and relationships, like Reena mentioned. There is a big gap, and especially when you think about people of color, people who've historically been unrepresented and who don't know how things work, how the bidding process work. People are like, yeah, we have a business, we would love to bid, we didn't even know it came out, and all of that. So these complicated issues, how do I, as a councilwoman, make sure that I make people aware when these bids come out and put it out in the community? Because I have a group of people that follow me, that kind of align with me, and that look up to me to guide them in terms of how they can work with our local government as well. So we are, as a local government representatives, we are kind of the point of contact that I would talk to somebody, sit down, and then connect you with my city manager and say, Joe, I want you to talk to this company. I think there's some innovative stuff happening. And we have, a vision for better communication with our community. We have a vision of a more seamless way that we do our procurement process, even how, we run our staff and our meetings. Please talk to them, see where this can go. So we're kind of the connectors, the policymakers, and then the budget approvers as your elected council people.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman, for giving us a plain understanding and explanation so everybody's on the same page. Sometimes I think that we talk about government with all of our acronyms and all of our lingo that we manage on the day-to-day, but then we stop the conversation because we make the conversation inaccessible to people that doesn't talk our language. And this is why it's important that we discuss these topics. So I'm gonna go next with Philip Saunders from the city of Seattle. And building up on the first question, I would like to know, what are local governments' current priorities nowadays, post-pandemic, or getting out of a pandemic, or managing a pandemic? And what are the big topics on the agenda? You are a leader on the sustainability industry and pushing for more diverse people, trying to bring, low carbon policies and green initiatives. I want to start there. Are those things big on the agenda? And if those are not, what's big on the agenda right now for local governments?
Thanks, Paola. So first, for the city of Seattle, we lead with race. That's very important, and I can't say that loud enough, right? So when we all sit down at the table, and Councilwoman just spoke to it, is we have to reflect on our communities. We have to do outreach. I've done contracting for 20 years, and that's key. You have to meet people where they are, and I know everybody on here understands that, because we can sit there and talk to folks and talk way over their head, but we have to be able to speak in that common language that we all understand, right? That's a big key for me. In our communities here, whether it's Seattle or my hometown of Philadelphia, or wherever you go, you need to go out and take off this governmental hat and just be a person and understand that it's not about hierarchical. I hate when people go in and say, I'm this and I'm that. I'm just a guy from Philadelphia that is here to try to help to do what I can for my community that I serve here, and being a public servant. The second piece of that is for our communities that are struggling for COVID, again, our communities of color, were the most affected by this COVID. So in what we're doing now, folks still aren't back at work here in Seattle, right? They're very, very limited. We're still trying to figure out how to bring folks back. And that was a part of setting up the mass vaccination sites and doing all the testing and making things available. But we're slowly recovering, but we're getting there. But what we have to realize with that is, how do people get to work, right? They don't want to ride on buses anymore because they're afraid that they may, get sick or whatever the case may be. So you have to go to the community and ask, how do we get around this? How can we do that? And what the city is doing is they're starting to use innovation. We weren't big on using Zoom or Microsoft Teams or WebEx or any of those. So now we're doing those things, right? And it took a pandemic to make something creative, but now we have to be able to put those tools in people's hands. And in doing that, the big goal of the city is always, figure out how. So big agenda item is, one, sustainability is always at the top. I do nothing without making sure I do outreach to the community, whether it's green fleet, whether it's reducing carbon. I make sure that I reach out to our minority folks as a whole and explain, here's what's going on. And we've built a listserv and we continue to build out and build out and build out. But, it's very, very important that race and social justice is addressed. And that's something that we're doing, and it's a constant challenge. But one of the biggest things is making sure that we are able to get contracts in people's hands from the community, because that ends up building a bigger and better Seattle and our communities. Our communities are the ones that are struggling. And when I say our communities, I mean people of color communities are struggling, and we have to be able to help them to recover and even the playing field. And that is something that's looming large in the city of Seattle. And any work that we do, we make sure that we include diverse vendors, inclusive vendors, because that is very, very key. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. So I think we're getting very deep into this conversation about these big topics. Like Councilwoman says, we don't have entrepreneurs, we don't have a committee that is talking technology here, and we need to create the committee. She goes on, she's a representative and she makes that happen. And then Philip is saying, well, I'm an advocate for sustainability. Everything I do, he's been in contracting for 20 years plus, has sustainability on top. And part of sustainability is also social justice and bringing back and, balancing out things that we let out of control, that were not where we were investing public money to raise everybody. So he's also talking about, he got into government and there was something that wasn't working for him and everybody that looks like him and everybody that looks like us. And it's about more diversity in procurement and and that's a big agenda item for Seattle. So moving to the next question, we're gonna ask Fabian from the City of Mexico. Let's talk a little bit about local government procurement for one of the largest cities in Latin America. I don't know if social justice is a topic that we discuss enough in Latin America. I would even say it's a topic that is like, what is social justice? And I'm gonna get back to Philip later to ask him about that. But how does local government procurement is impacting the ability to execute the government agenda? So city governments say, this is important, this is important, this is important. And then you and your team are in charge of creating these amazing procurement systems that allow the city to execute that budget. Are we effectively building this type of system so we can allocate public money against these big agenda items, especially whatever you guys consider that is important? And I hope diversity is there. And I hope that opening up procurement to everyone in the city is there. So that's the first question. And then the second question is procurement really helping? And is the way you guys are restructuring the tools really helping, or are we still facing some government holdback and roadblock on how we can maximize that public impact through procurement?
Yes, thank you, Paula, for the question. Yes, I think procurement is regarded as one of the main tools that can help to promote the government objectives. But somehow the delay that we have in procurement in Mexico City is really long. The law and the procurement system is mostly paper-based. So I think there haven't been efforts in the past terms of creating an innovation and creating digital tools. So probably we regard as procurement as one of the main triggers for innovation, but yet we don't have the tools to actually create the change. So I think what we are doing in Mexico City right now, and one of the main objectives of the mayor in Mexico City, is to create this digital transformation. That's why they created the Public Innovation Agency. where I'm working. It's one of the kind in Latin America. So it's mainly focused on bringing all the digital tools, all the digitalization to the city, to the citizens, to bring them closer. So we know that procurement is highly regarded as one of the main activities of government susceptible to corruption. So that's what I think, being related with what Philip was saying, to this social justice that we are trying to follow. The main problem we have in Latin American countries, I would say, is corruption. So, and procurement is regarded as one of the main activities that is reluctant to corruption. So what we're trying to do is to change that perspective, is to bring procurement to the citizens more closely. So I think one of the main activities that we are trying to do here in Tianguis Digital, in the public platform we are creating, is not only to open data, not only to let everyone to see what we are doing, but also to try to interact with the citizens. We're trying to create tools, as you might know, because we are collaborating in one, the pre-tendering discussion documents. That's what we want to do, that we want to bring the citizens to us. We want to communicate with them. We want to understand what are their needs, what we should be buying to fully feel the objectives that we want to do for the citizens. So that's what one of the main aims. So I see procurement, and I think most of the citizens see procurement as one of the main activities that we can do to change or to feel the objectives of the government. But we need to do several activities of digitalizations to finally achieve that objective.
Thank you so much, Fabian. So you talk a lot about the predominant role of the tools and of innovation, and how this amazing new agency that you have in the City of Mexico was just created to, I would say, bridge that gap and start accelerating the change that we know we need to do. Like we've been talking in Latin America about corruption since I was born. And the question, it doesn't depend on one person or one leader. It's like, how can we scale the best practices and the things we know we need to do? Because we have good people in government. We have the most prepared people in government. And at the same time, we have amazing technology that can scale what works and what's good. So I want to jump to ask the next question to Roy Zaban about the role of innovation. So what does innovation in the context of local government looks like these days? And are there any specific examples that you can provide to illustrate and to also build upon some of the use cases that Fabian mentioned?
Okay, so I think that first of all, the role of innovation is something that is very important to think about the definition of it, because once you have a clear definition about it, the whole way that your organization is working is clear. And I think that when we're talking about the role of innovation, at least in my opinion, is solving the biggest challenges in the easiest ways to, in our case, to residents or local government employees. And I think that once that we have a discussion about challenges and problems and not about the solutions, the way that our local governments work is quite different. Because when we started to talk about with local governments about innovation at the beginning, we had all of the examples of employees talking about, we need this kind of application, we need this kind of software, without checking what are the needs. And today we see more mature local governments talking about their problems, open to talk about their problems with their communities, with entrepreneurs. And we see that the solutions that come in are much more suitable. And I think that there are two elements that today local governments and public sector in general are focusing on. One is building the human capacity in local governments to deal with innovation, to think differently, to ask the right questions, to work in practices that we know come from the private sector, such as agile methodologies that help break problems and understand what we need, and also educate the right people to understand what they're looking for and what technology can bring to the organization. The second thing is bringing innovation from the outside. And we're talking a lot about open innovation because we understand that local governments are really good at what they do, but they don't have to be always the problem solvers. They need to understand the needs of their communities and then go outside and bring the best solutions for their needs. And once we talk about open innovation, we see a lot of innovation labs that local governments build on their own. Sometimes they do it with partners from the public sector, also from the private sector. And I think that the biggest challenge is to understand or think how we merge both of these elements, how we bring a start from the outside, understand how we work with them, ask the right questions, and then also work with the employees inside the local government to solve the problem that we are talking about. And I think that we're seeing these processes in many local governments, and we see a lot of success and a lot of case studies in many different sectors. We can talk about waste management, we can talk about communication with residents, we can talk about a lot of infrastructure, a lot of different issues. And there was a survey last year in local governments in the US that said that 75% of the respondents said that a new software had a good impact on their organization. And I think that this is a big change that we're seeing, that also COVID helped a lot with, that it means I think that we're walking in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Roy. So we have talked about leadership in government, people that have created things from scratch because they weren't there when they got to government. And then we've talked a little bit about systems and innovation. So my next question is for Reena, because there are over 400 million small and medium businesses in the world. And every month, more government agencies launch, whether it's an economic development or a diversity or a small business initiative, but still, the data that we are collecting at GLASS shows that there's not a dramatic increase in the number of small and medium businesses that are doing business with local governments. So we have the leadership and we have the innovation and we have the small businesses. What's not working? What's the disconnect?
Well, clearly there's innovation on both sides. There is no lack of innovation. Companies are coming up with ideas. Companies are coming up with solutions. The government is coming up with mission needs. This is where the disconnect starts to happen. Companies, a lot of companies that are innovating, what we find are innovating in a bubble. If you are going to come up with solutions, you first need to understand your client base, very basic business sense. Who do you want to sell to? What is that clients and the government that you're trying to sell to? What is their mission? Understand that. We have companies who come to us and say, hey, I want to sell, I provide facilities management systems. I want to sell to the Navy. Well, does Navy buy facilities management solutions? Who buys it? Who is your buyer? Understand the buyer's mission. There's no lack of innovation on either side. The problem we find is their companies are barking up the wrong tree. They're not doing their homework. And the solutions that they're offering are pushing their solution versus collaborating. We need to see more collaboration. And this doesn't fall entirely on the industry side either. Government needs to start being more open, more vocal about this is my problem. Don't come to industry and say, I want this solution. Don't make up your mind about a solution. Tell the industry, this is the problem we are trying to solve. What solutions can you all offer us? Open it, have an open dialogue. That's where I think the disconnect really happens. Both sides are working in a bubble of their own. As we heard from the folks on the government side, they create councils, they're looking at, hey, these are our problems, what's the innovation out there? But there's so much out there. They don't know what else is out there. Open it up and challenge the industry to say, this is the problem we're trying to solve. What solutions can you offer us, and evaluate it from that side? And to the industry, to the small businesses, I our recommendation is don't start with what you are selling. Start by saying, what is the problem and how does my innovation, how does my product solve your mission need? How will I meet you? Meet each other halfway. So there's no, that's where the challenge happens. And I will digress a little bit here and extend my narrative, is to say there is every government operates differently, from city, state, county. Everybody's way of procuring is different. There's no standardization, and that creates a huge problem for businesses. Small businesses do not have the resources, and companies like yours, if I understand your product correctly, you solve some of that problem, right? You help them get registered. You help them learn of all these opportunities that are out there. Unless there are companies like yours and mine, these small businesses are lost. It's too much. There is no consistency in procurement. And so there are layers of solutions, there are layers of problem, but layers of solutions to help more companies get into public procurement.
Thank you so much, Reena. Hearing these words, collaboration, open, vocal, we already have the innovation, we have the leadership, we're talking to the leadership here. So it's like, can we connect? But we need to understand what you need and what I have. And we need to create a language that both parts can understand and piggyback over. And this is something interesting because I had the privilege to study government procurement in George Washington University. That's what brought me to the United States with a Fulbright scholarship. But I never learned to be open and to be vocal and to be collaborative. I learned how to build perfect requests for proposals. You see, and then life brings me to Silicon Valley, where I'm not gonna fail alone. I tell the team, like, when we don't know about something, we need to go and find those answers. But if I just tell the team, I got it, guys, I got it under control, I know what we're doing, then I'm saving everyone the opportunity to learn, and I'm saving myself the opportunity to even articulate a problem and be vocal about it. And that saving in the long term doesn't help anyone. So this is exactly the type of conversation we need to have, and open, vocal, and collaborative. I really like those takeaways. So I'm gonna go now with Ana from Innpulsa, Colombia. Is this the case in Latin America too, or at least in Colombia, where small businesses and startups are having difficulty to sell and to heavily engage with local governments? Is this the case? And I know you guys are doing a lot of work on that. So tell me how you're taking all these small businesses and innovative solutions from where they are to really connect with some of their government counterparts.
Well, Paola, it's the same. I think the same I heard from my panelist friends. In Innpulsa, we learned that this is, and we take this as an innovation project itself. So what we do here is to understand the needs from the public services, servers, from the public government, and also understand what is the services and products that our startups and entrepreneurs have been developing. And through open innovation process, we have been trying to make a bridge between these two needs, the needs and the demands and the offers that we have in each part of the ecosystem. So what we try is to first understand, as many of our panelists have said, what are the needs that each government agency needs, and also get like a portfolio of solving technologies we have to these needs, and we try to connect them. We try to help the startups to develop a business model that can meet the demands of the contract, the public procurement laws here in Colombia. There's a difference between us and you guys, and is that we have only one law for business, for public procurement in Colombia. We just have one, and it's the same rule for everyone. And it tends to I don't know, to make startups and entrepreneurs not to be able to participate in this type of public calls that we have and we do in different things. You know, we can talk about our mission as public governments, and we can also say how to make our managing processes more agile and reliable to our citizens. So what we do here is we try to make to accompany not only the public sector, but also the startups to meet in the center, to get to change their mindset, to change their ways so they can start to collaborate and work together. It's not been easy, not easy at all, especially when we go and talk to lawyers and tell them, okay, we have to change the way we are now making these contracts, you know, and wow, you have to make many different changes, but we are doing it piece by piece, place by place, and well, we have been doing this for about 2 years, and we are getting there. It's not easy, as I told you before, but we are working together to make it that each one in the ecosystem can work and help and collaborate together.
Well, I'm getting excited because there's a lot of hope. I just hear challenges being tackled in many different ways, and I love it. Thank you so much, Anna. So, Mick, let's go to Africa. We know Africa has been going through an exponential transformation in many different industries, leaving no industry untouched. Is this also the case for local African governments? And how do you see governments embracing digital transformation and innovation in a continent that has been most of the time tagged as, you know, the latest adopter, but actually what we see is that is the launchpad for many of the innovation that we're using all around the world. So can you talk about that experience of innovation in Africa and in African governments?
Sure. Yeah, I think, well, we've got a unique opportunity in Africa to leapfrog, because we don't have a lot of these deep infrastructures already developed. So there is an opportunity to leapfrog certain systems, just like we leapfrogged the telephone lines in Africa. You know, we went straight to mobile networks. And we've got a unique case in South Africa. I don't know if anyone knows the history of our politics in South Africa, but in 1994, the ANC took power of the government, and they've been in power since then. And we had a corrupt previous president, it was Jacob Zuma, where we had about 9 lost years, and there was corruption like you've never seen. And just 2 months ago, we had Zuma was finally put in jail about a month and a half ago. And when he was put in jail, the next day there were riots, and there was a serious coordinated attack for a coup. So we've got a couple of challenges, and we've overcome that now, thankfully, but we've got a couple of challenges. But what we've seen over the last couple of years working with pockets of good divisions within government is that we've helped the DBSA, which is the Development Bank of Southern Africa, the DFR, really look at how do we create these schools of the future, and building these unique labs for students to embrace these different technologies around artificial intelligence or robotics, 3D printing. And these are just being put in place now after 2.5 years of working on them, which is really going to accelerate the learning at a much lower age bracket. So I think the change needs to come through education. That's a major way of creating positive change, and it needs to start really at the grassroots level. And then also there was a body set up called the 4R Commission by the president, which is really to focus around how do we look at these different technologies and embrace them and bring them into these government organizations. So I think that was a great step for government. And it really is up to government's policies and regulation to drive this innovation within entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs need room to play and to try new things. So, and if we look at a country like Singapore, what they've done is incredible in terms of the government policy and regulation, really instilling this idea of allowing innovation to happen. I mean, if you look at their laws on the crypto at the moment, they are inviting a lot of the people that have been banned in China are now moving to Singapore to go create their businesses there. So that, you know, for Singapore is going to have this massive spark in innovation in the crypto space. But similarly, just with China, they've also brought a lot of people out of poverty through, you know, the easy regulation laws to allow business to flourish, allow these SMEs to flourish within China. And you're seeing all these new regulations to sort of curb the big players and to allow the smaller guys to come in. So I really believe you know, government policy and regulation needs to be eased up to allow entrepreneurs to do what they need to do to, you know, bring up the next you know, social glass business like you're doing, or Matinet, one of those businesses.
Thank you, Mick. We love how Africa, just because it was so behind, then it just did the leapfrog effect, and we cannot talk about leapfrog effect and going from this to, you know, a moonshot without mentioning the African continent. So I love how you position it and why you remind us that leapfrogging is important. We are running out of time. Please, if anyone in the panel, in the set of attendees has any questions, now is the time. So please start adding them to the chat. I'm going to do like fireside chat questions because we need boom, boom, boom to close the webinar. So I have one last question for each one of you. Philip, you say get rid of the dinosaurs. You've been doing a lot of leadership and a lot of internal innovation, even though those are buzzwords today. Please tell us one actionable thing that we can do to bring more leaders like you into positions of power in government to effect change and get rid of legacy processes and systems. One big thing, one quick thing that you think is actionable and that government people that are in this conversation today or in other public organizations can take away and do tomorrow, or at least write in the agenda and say, you know what, I can get on this right now.
For me, it's step up and take ownership, period. You have your space that you own and own your space, and that would immediately make change. And don't be afraid of making a decision or the backlash that comes from it. If you know it's coming from a good place in your heart, then just do it. But again, you have to get rid of some of these folks that don't want to change. You know, got to open the door and find something else for them to do.
So take ownership. I hope my team is taking notes because we're gonna come up with a fast fact from our panelists here, telling us like do these 10 things and then we talk. So we actually have a question for Councilwoman Sabrina Saffar. Someone asked, biggest challenges. What are the biggest challenges as a city council member to really have passed policies that can push innovation in a local government, you know, operations? I'm going to ask it in a positive way. What can we do to pass policies and push innovation from the position that you are, that is a city councilwoman member?
So I think everybody knows this and can tell you that the biggest thing is it's slow. Local government is very, very slow. And part of it is part of the process we have to follow. We have to have enough public meetings where public is aware that we're going to pass this policy. And we have to follow that. And that's put in place to make sure that we are you know, not passing things without everybody at least getting noticed about it. But things have changed. So the pandemic has taught us a way in which we've gone through a digital transformation in a way we would never have. I can tell you that the whole year and a half that I was on council, my goal was how do we get live meetings to our residents who are on the road, who are not able to come to City Hall on a 7 p.m. Tuesday night. Zoom happened in a day. And that, because there was such a need, strong need, it just got pushed out like nobody's business. Funny stories, I was in Seattle the 2 weeks before the pandemic shut down everything. And I said, I need to log in from Seattle. I had to do 3 test runs We had to put a big monitor in City Hall. I had to put notices all around my hotel room saying there's a city council meeting happening today. Please join us. The agenda had to be set. It was such a lengthy process. And then the way, digital transformation happened, and I'm sure Philip appreciates it a lot as well. So sometimes the need is so strong that the government speeds up. And we have to start embracing that and changing the way we're doing things. And one of the things, like in California, the governor and everybody is now looking at it, that we cannot go to the old way of doing things and running our council meetings. They have to be hybrid. They have to be available for everybody in our city to access them. And that will bring us to the challenge of broadband. And that is going to be the next biggest infrastructure which cities need to invest and build to make sure it's equitable, everybody has access to these meetings, and everybody's connected. So hopefully that answered the question.
I love it. So we have take ownership and move, because, and then someone is commenting on the chat, did we learn the lesson, or are we waiting for the next pandemic so we can bring the next cycle of innovation? So that's passive aggressive, but I like it because it's true. So Fabian, we go with you now. What is one actionable idea in the short or medium term that local government procurement departments or agencies can implement to accelerate procurement processes, not needing to wait for another pandemic?
Yes, I think we learned the lesson, and I think we should learn the lesson, and we need to have it very clear. As a closing argument, I would like to say, and as a summary of what I've heard of all the participants, I would like to say like 4 main steps we need to really, might sound really obvious, but there have a big complexity behind. So I think first of all, it would be building trust in government, because as Philip was saying, sometimes people regard the government as the witness of this social disparity, and sometimes as the promoter of that. So I think building trust in government, which is one of the main things we have to do in the short term. And next one, it would be create communication channels, easy to use, easy to follow, that the citizens feel comfortable using them. So I think that's the second step. And the third one would be foster the participation and inclusion in procurement. Obviously seeking what also Philip was saying, social justice. I think that all these channels must work in the favor of creating inclusion. And the final part, which I'm also really putting all my efforts, is to make these whole processes as the new government behavior. So we want to build an institution that is in the behavioral manner. We are doing the things in the right way all the time. So I would like to say that as my closing argument.
Thank you so much, Fabian. So Fabian mentioned 4 actionable things we can do inside governments, especially local governments, so we can really start taking advantage of all the technology that is out there and innovate a little bit faster. What about Roy? Any best practices that you can share with us that you've been able to identify across the public sector that can help us to radically innovate, or to innovate more fast? And to collaborate more?
Yeah, so I think that building a clear process in the local government, how to work with startups or tech businesses, is something that's very useful for both vendors and employees, because and that starts from finding the right, defining the problem, finding the right solution. It goes through procurement and implementation. And once the whole process is clear and the startup knows what he's going for and employees know what are their milestones, we see that things go much faster than in other places that need to reinvent the wheel every time they start this kind of process. And procurement is a really big thing around that. And I think that once it's part of the process, it builds more communication between both sides, because they know that they're not only coming to talk with the local government, they know that there's something behind that they're willing to buy the solution if it's relevant. And also the employees know that someone in the local government C-level officials have the power and the will to invest in these kinds of solutions. And I think that in all successful local governments, we see these kinds of processes. And once it goes over and over again, they're much more clear, they work fast, and everyone, both sides enjoy that.
Thank you, Roy, very much for that. Reena, let's go with you. One thing that small businesses can really start doing today to step up, to learn this government language while government simplifies its language, so they can start doing more business with government. What is an actionable thing we can promote for the small businesses and innovative entrepreneurs and startups out there?
Yeah, thank you, Paula. What my advice and closing remarks to small businesses: start with a solution, start with what you're offering, not what your socioeconomic set aside criteria is. You have you're a woman-owned small business, your minority-owned small business, all that is great. That is not why government can do business with you. That is just a mechanism to get to you. The government needs solutions. What is the solution that you're offering to a problem? Start there. So don't pitch that I'm a small business. Don't think small. You are innovative. You have strong ideas. You have good solutions. Think big. You are offering a solution. Your size is irrelevant. That just becomes a mechanism for the government to get to you. So start with the solution first, think big. And I also want to say both sides, government and small businesses, stop innovating by crisis. Innovate to solutions, innovate to problems, not innovation by crisis.
Love it. Now, Anna, let's continue on that last question about, one specific action that governments, from your point of view, can adopt today to advance their agendas on government transformation and to really do more and engage more and talk more with small businesses. One thing that might have come from your experience at Innpulsa that is working, it is something actionable that can start yielding results this year, maybe.
Well, I think you said it, Paola. We have to start small. We have to start to understand as government agencies that we can work with small and medium enterprises or startups and get to meet in the middle, as one of our participants said. We need to meet in the middle and say, okay, we can start small, what I don't know, perhaps calling a mutual challenge, a different challenge they have, and understand and get to meet with the startups that can solve this challenge, and start with this, I don't know, a prototype or an experiment that can help them to get to a more official way to work together. When government agencies understand the time and language that startups talk and vice versa, we can start to meet in the middle and change the ways we have our procurement processes organized and understand.
Thank you, Anna. I think that definitely if government embodies some of the innovation culture where it's okay to fail, where you have to start small, when you need to do a lot of experiments because the best version of your project or idea is not the first version of your project or idea. And then starting, as Reena says, start with the solution. What can I do for you? How can I help you? How can we meet and talk about the thing I'm really good at and that you're needing? We can advance those conversations. Last but not least, one question for Mick, and then we have an amazing question from the panel and we're gonna close up. So Mick, you're the futurist here. You're the exponential tech guy. What do you see in the future of governments? How can exponential technologies bring us closer to that future without another crisis pushing us to do what we know we need to do?
So I think what there's been some great insights said already. I think experimentation is fantastic. I think governments need to realize that these exponential technologies are on this incredible growth curve, and they must start embracing AI and platforms and things that can actually help them leapfrog themselves into a much better space, so that governments aren't left behind when this technology wave keeps coming. And also, I think it's about the government's mindset. Government needs to change a mindset of thinking it's all on them. It's about a collaborative mindset. It's about public and private partnerships. With the advent of technology, it's a lot easier to do business with global organizations, with local organizations, with SMEs. So, I think it's really about this collaborative mindset that government needs to embrace, and to use exponential technologies like AI and platforms.
And maybe we should educate more of our government leaders on exponential technologies. The first thing I ask, sometimes we're having a conversation with a government leader, is, are you using any exponential technology in your system? And there's like, what? And we know they are using tools that have a little bit of artificial intelligence and a little bit of machine learning and a little bit of automation all over. It's just that they don't know. And because they don't know, they cannot talk about it, and they cannot even communicate.
Make the right decisions. Yeah, exactly.
So thank you, Mick, for that. There's one question, whoever on the panel wants to answer. It's a question from, have it here, from Junailis Salazar. Thank you, Junailis. She says, for those city councils implementing social and sustainable public procurement, what instruments and tools are they using to evaluate the impact of the policy? This is our biggest challenge in the Barcelona Council. So I would open it not to city councils only, but what are the tools we're using to implement the impact of these policies that we do have in some places?
Yeah, I shot a note, Paula. This is Philip. Disparity studies are key, right? That tells like some of the policy around some of the small business and minority, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses, to make sure that they're getting work. You do a disparity study, and that basically breaks everything open. So take a look at disparity studies, and then you also have procurement dashboards to kind of monitor whatever policies that are set, how they're working, how they're affecting people. Like a lot of work that we do here in Seattle is using dashboards to kind of monitor what policies are doing and how they're affecting certain things. So we build dashboards around that to kind of resolve that piece too. So it's an ongoing effort, but Paula, your business actually makes that a little bit easier with tracking a lot of that information and making it legit. So that's what we do. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So Reena, you want to go ahead and say?
I just wanted to jump on that, because what we see from a business challenge perspective, we see agencies marking off on dashboards, hey, we met our goals, we met our women-owned goals, we met our veteran-owned goals, but how the numbers are being counted are very inaccurate, and that needs to be fixed. A company can be woman-owned, it can be veteran-owned, it can be minority-owned. You cannot count that number 3 times and say you met the goal. That is a huge problem. And so the government does need to rethink how they're counting numbers and be realistic, whether are they really meeting those minority and diversity goals.
Thank you.
I just wanted to.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add, it's great to learn from Philip and how the city of Seattle is doing. Small cities like San Ramon, and there's a lot of little cities that make up big regions, are not doing it, honestly. I mean, we as council members would love to see it, but it's not on the priority for our staff, and so it never gets in front of in front of the council ever. So I would love to connect with you, Philip, separately and find out what Seattle is doing and how really we can bring some of this back to our cities and implement those kind of even real dashboards. And to Reena's point, making sure that it's not just things we're doing to cover up our numbers and say, hey, we can provide you numbers, but getting real data. So thank you for connecting.
So we ran out of time. We ran out of time a long time ago, but I think that's definitely on us because we brought too much brain power for 1 hour. So what we're gonna do is for our amazing amazing panelists. If you have LinkedIn profiles, if you don't mind writing your LinkedIn links on the chat so the attendees can add you and track your work and continue checking what you're doing and how you're supporting small businesses and local governments and how you're just leading and doing what you're doing, it'd be awesome. So please share your LinkedIn profiles on the chat. I'm gonna finish by summarizing the key takeaways of this amazing conversation that I think definitely pushes everyone forward. So everyone, let's take ownership. We don't need to go into the slow processes. We can move those processes, and there are things we can do today to move those processes. As Fabian also mentioned, we need to create more trust. And for us to create more trust between our government, our vendors, and our people, our communities, we need to collaborate more. We need to talk more, and we need to talk in a way that we both can understand what we're saying. We need to also create and foster tools that can provide faster participation and inclusion in procurement. And people like Reena and other companies out there are really doing that. And people like Philip has dashboards that can and thus do studies that can help us track that. So there's people looking at that, because when we win on the diversity and small businesses metrics, many other people win. So we need to push those numbers out there. We also need better processes. Roy mentioned about bringing clear processes that can really bring innovative businesses and companies and startups to really start talking about their solutions first to the governments that need some of those solutions. We need more communications. We need to meet in the middle. We need to start small. We need to do more experiments. And lastly, we need to leapfrog. We know that we can do the leap. We have people doing the work. So what's the missing piece? Taking action, taking ownership, and doing that fast, because we know we don't need to wait for another crisis. Technology can help us do the leap. So with that, again, thank you, everyone. We really hope you are able to take some learnings and insights out of this conversation, and we're gonna continue doing more conversations, because definitely there's more to extract from all the leadership and brain power that we have here. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.